was after a long owner's meeting and so forth. Sure, so stepped aside. He goes, DC, I just want to tell you, this is the GM of the property. I've been talking with my team, the management team of the hotel, and my brand, who I work for, Wyndham. I said, I just want to tell you, as a corporate guy, we really like you. I said, okay. That sounds like a good thing, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this. Where are we going with this? And he says, and do you want me to tell you why we like you? I said, okay. He says, you listen. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he went on for a minute just to talk a little bit about that. And this was, I can tell you exactly when this was and where this was, because it obviously had an impact on me. It was a long time ago. This was 1999. Okay, that's how long. But here's my point. It's not a style thing. It happens to be who I am, and I guess I was raised in such a way that I was taught to listen to people. So as much as I've been fortunate enough to rise through the ranks in our business and be a pretty high-level executive person with some major hotel companies, which theoretically creates an opportunity where you don't have to be listened to, you can sort of dictate stuff. It's a style, that is a style. I don't do that, I've never done that. I'd rather have you on board with what I'm saying because it makes sense and you understand it and you respect it than because they said so. And that goes back to a previous question. That is in my head at every moment when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm dealing with property hotel people, which is, let's get in this together because we understand each other and respect each other. It starts with listening too. So that resonates for me, and it has, however many years ago that was, 17 years ago, this guy says, you're a good listener. I wasn't like focused on that, it's just the way that I am, but there was a message there for me, and hopefully I'm conveying the message properly for you. Listening is so hugely important, because no matter how great a resume you bring, no matter how many years of experience you bring, you can't possibly understand everything that's going on in a particular circumstance if you don't listen to those people who deal with it every day. And there's nothing more valuable than that. When I sit down with clients, especially for the first time, I don't talk much, which that's a little shocking. Anybody who knows me is like, you don't talk much. I don't, because I gotta listen, I gotta learn, right? I like to learn, and I know that I can be better at what I do if I learn more and if I listen more. So it's convenient that being a good listener and being someone who wants to learn works well for my business now. They didn't change what I was or who I was to do this. It's who I am, it's what I am. But I will stand by the statement that in any business that you're in, no matter how big a company is you're working for, not as an independent consultant, not by yourself, listening and learning are two of the most important things. And a willingness and a desire to do those things, it has to matter. Because without it, you're never going to get as far as you could otherwise. You get the sense I believe in that, right? Okay. So, thank you, Pedro, for that. I appreciate that. You nailed it with trust. I mean, and there's a bunch of other stuff that comes along with that, obviously. What is the most important asset? Okay, well, that's kind of where we just got to. Define the term entrepreneur. What's the difference between an entrepreneur and a consultant? Anybody know? Yes, ma'am.
An entrepreneur is a creator who works from the scratch to establish a company, and a consultant comes in different fields where he can give his advice or expertise in certain fields that involve some expert advice.
Yes, good. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. There is a general tendency, well, it's more than that, it's an actual fact. Consultants don't have to be independent. They don't have to be entrepreneurial at all, right? I say this with the greatest of respect, but think about the consulting companies that you know, and I'm sure you know who a lot of them are, within our industry or outside. You know, McKinsey comes to mind, Bain & Co. come to mind, First Boston Consult, there's a million of them, right? Those are powerful entities who serve a very important purpose in business in general. They're working at being a consultant at any one of those companies. You may or may not need to be entrepreneurial. I'm not criticizing them, but it's not a requirement, right? To be an independent consultant, for better or for worse, you need to be entrepreneurial. The separation from one independent consultant to another may be how entrepreneurial they are, how well they do that stuff, but there's a connection, but there's also a gap, right? They're not necessarily the same. An entrepreneur, I mean, you hear the phrase, I guess it's a phrase, 2 words of phrase? Serial entrepreneur, right? A serial entrepreneur is someone who does a bunch of different things. Maybe you think Shark Tank, or whatever it is, just think as an example. There are serial entrepreneurs. Their challenge is, okay, what can I do next on my own that's out of the box? And so forth. That's fine. That's obviously not what we are. We are entrepreneurs in that we have our own business. We've had our own business before in the form of the restaurant, Cafe Norma, that I mentioned, but we are solely zoned in on one particular expertise. Okay. Why are there consultants? Why would there be a need for consultants? Why do we even exist? Please.
It's because sometimes when you're working as you're the entrepreneur, for example, or you're managing a company and you work, and at some point you don't see, you kind of don't see the problems anymore, whereas an outside person would be able to more clearly see what is going on and what's wrong. It's just fresh eyes, new perspective.
Perfect. Exactly. There is a possibility, I won't even say a tendency, there is the possibility in the regular work environment for this thing that we all know is tunnel vision, right? We don't deliberately go there. It's not that we're not even entrepreneurial in how we think, but sometimes that's that expression, right? You can't see the forest for the trees. You've done it this way for so long. This is the way that we do it. I'm probably too much to the other extreme. I tend to look at things where if the reason why we do certain things a certain way is because we always have, I see red flags, black flags, it's like, no. If the only reason we're doing something is because that's the way we've always done it, my immediate reaction is we need to look at that. Now, stop right there. That's an independent entrepreneur or consultant. I'm saying if we're doing it a certain way because we've always done it that way, stop. I'm not saying change it. I'm saying look at it. And that's an important piece that independent folks in my space, frankly, sometimes miss. Because they are so focused as a consultant, as an independent consultant, on justifying their existence. They need to find stuff so that later on they can say to their client, I changed this and this and this and this. That's value, sign me up again. The missing piece there in my mind, and very, very importantly, is I see all these things that are happening because they've always happened that way. My next move is not to say, change them. My next move is to say, let's look into those and see if they make sense. Because from where I come from, if I look at something that you've done as general manager for the last 15 years at your hotel, and say, we need to change it because 15 years is too long, there could be a certain outcome. If I look at what you've done for the last 15 years, and we really take it apart, and you know what, there's a lot of good stuff there. This was such a great idea 15 years ago that it still works now. Let's keep going. My best value add as a consultant to you is to endorse, is to support the fact that you're doing this thing, and you know what, that's the right way to do it. Don't change a thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes with independent consultants is because they are so focused on, frankly, justifying their existence, that they look for ways of changing things so they can put their name on that change. If it's the right change, if you do the homework, you do the research, and it points to the change, we should do it. And I promise you that's where my credibility with the Ritz guys across the table or whatever, as we talked about earlier, matters. Because then I can sit and say to them, I think we need to change this, and here's why. And instead of them immediately putting up a barrier, well, the guy said change, we don't do change. On the contrary, they're going to listen because I've established credibility with them. I'm a peer, I'm a colleague, I'm not an enemy. Let's talk about this. And maybe we agree, maybe we disagree. But the point ultimately is that change for the sake of change is a bad thing. Yes, consultants are about looking for opportunities for change to make things better. But I come back to what I said a couple of minutes ago about listening and learning. If you don't listen and don't learn, you can't provide an opportunity to make things better. How could you? If you're there just to make change, you'll make change and you'll move on. But that's not the way we approach it. We're in it for the long haul, even if whether our agreement with the owner is for 6 months, 6 years, or whatever. We're looking to make a difference. And that's how that works for us. In the hospitality industry, I can't really speak to this in other industries. And this is probably another reason why the name of our company is Titan and not TCB Consulting or something along those lines, which a lot of folks do, right? That's how they name themselves. The way you get hired, how do you get hired as a consultant? In our world, there's a lot of people out there that are quote unquote in between jobs, which is euphemistic for lost their job, that become consultants. That's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I am certainly not, it's not an indictment of people who lose their jobs. I've been out of work in the hospitality industry, so I'm not knocking that at all. But the point is, there are consultants and there are advisors. And for an owner, for a potential client, it's really important that they understand that. Which leads to a point that I'll make a little bit later when we talk, but I may as well make the point now. I never, ever have gotten a client, nor will I ever get a client, because they Googled hotel consultants. Ain't gonna happen. We have a website. In fact, if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna leave you the URL. I want you to see it. I'm very proud of our website. Because we need to have a website, we need to tell people what we do. I'm gonna come to you later. But That said, our best references are from existing clients, people that know us, people who trust us. So anybody who's a consultant that's had a lot of experience can be a consultant. That's not enough. And that's where we try and establish ourselves more as that advisor that I was talking about.
So the question that I have is, at the moment that someone decides to become a consultant, such as your wife, who said she started the company first and
Yep.
you joined later, could you kind of talk to us about that beginning stage of going from I work for this company or that company, whatever the case, of doing project management to okay, I'm going to start my own company, I'm going to do my own consulting. How do I get my clientele? How do I get my
Yes.
first, how do I book my first kind of contract?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great
that
question.
beginning phase of
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to it. I will tell you right up front, and you'll know this in a minute when I try to answer that. We had an unfair advantage, and I'll explain that. We had a bit of a safety net, which is while we were still living in Shanghai, in our particular case, and I was working for Interstate Hotels and Resorts, Norma, my wife, because I was the one who was literally permitted to work in China, she could not. After 2 years, she wanted to be working again. And through somebody that we knew here in the States, an opportunity presented itself in the form of a resort property in South Beach that was about to undergo a complete renovation and repositioning. And because we knew some of the players involved in the ownership group, we were able to get connected with them. And what they needed at that time, this was 2 years before the thing closed and then reopened, was project management. So while I was still in China working for Interstate, Norma was able to land that client, that contract, as an independent contractor, as Titan. Okay? So before we had sort of said, here's our master plan, we're going to go out, Norma, you first, and then DC to join, and we'll do this together. I wish I could tell you that it worked exactly as we planned. It didn't. That opportunity presented itself at a time when, frankly, we were looking to come back to the US. Norma came back first to start on that, and that was the second sort of genesis of Titan. I came back, and for another 2.5 years after being back from China, still worked for Interstate, my employer. So Norma was doing the Titan stuff, doing that. That's when we reached the point and said, okay, how at that time she had 2 clients doing that type of work. That to me gave us enough of I'll call it a safety net. To say now I can leave Interstate and join you and bring what I bring, which as I mentioned earlier is a little bit of a different skill set, and we can go out together and there's less risk. So it's a great question. For those who have to step out, stop working here today, start as a consultant tomorrow with nothing, frankly, I've never done it. So I can only be honest with you. It's a huge question, but I've been fortunate that part of our strategy to go out on our own was knowing that we had, I don't want to say protection, because there's no such thing, but we had something to count on while I was ramping up my side of the business. I'm sure that's the exception rather than the rule.
It's kind of like you had a guaranteed first client. It's
Yeah.
graduating law school and knowing like the moment that I graduate, I have my first case.
Exactly right. And even though you know that you can't live off of that first case alone,
Right.
your example, it's something
A platform.
versus,
Now you have credibility. Now
Yeah.
you have a reference. Now
Yeah.
so many doors open up after that one.
you gotta have the first one is the toughest one.
But that was my question. How do you get that first one and officially call yourself a consultant?
Right, and while my answer to you is the honest answer, which is we haven't done that exactly, I can tell you, it's much as you would think, the decision to step out on your own, even when you have 0 to step to, instead of a little bit of a base that we fortunately had, still comes back to everything that I've been saying. It's about trust, it's about credibility, experience. Think about it. I work very hard in my role to sit on both sides of the table, that is, as doing what I do, and as the client, the owner, what do they think? What are they looking for? What's important to them? Well, what's important to them is trust. What's important to them is an ability to listen and learn. And what's important to them is experience. So if I make that move to step out on my own and I have 0 to step to, can I at least bring that so that I know I can compete in this space? Hopefully I can. I would say to you, if you ask yourself those questions and any of the answers are, I'm not so sure I have that experience yet, I'm not so sure, I couldn't listen better, etc., my advice would be you might want to wait a little bit. Honest answer. Okay. Which really all goes to the point of different scenarios when you retain a consultant, and certainly what makes one consultant more effective or less than another. It has a lot to do, I don't want to be repetitious here, but it has a lot to do with listening skills and the level of experience that you bring. It's not hard to hire a consultant. It's much harder to find a consultant that really adds value. From our perspective. Perception is reality. The view that consultants work at a high level without being responsible for the detail. That's out there. That's reality. You talk to a lot of folks, even outside of the hotel space. Oh, yeah, consultants, right? It's a lot of this strategic type of stuff, and that's just fine. But they're not around for the delivery, for the implementation. So, is that fair characterization? Is it accurate? It's fair, it's accurate. Is it what I want? Not at all. I mean, frankly, I don't mind if you think of consultants in general as that, as long as you understand why we as Titan are not that. I like that separation. That's not just going to happen. It's up to me to help you, the owner, the prospective client, to understand that. But that separation is everything to us. Success and how it's achieved. Thought process. This comes back to thinking as an entrepreneur. Think as an independent consultant, okay, fine. Think about the skill sets that we need to bring and all the stuff that I've been talking about. But think about your role as an entrepreneur, because as an independent consultant, you are an entrepreneur, and you need to think that way. It doesn't mean that you can't throw at your clients ideas that are more traditional, conventional. That's fine. The point is the ideas, the strategies that you throw at your clients need to work, okay? And to get back to the stereotyping about high-level stuff, the way you can throw ideas and so forth, strategies at clients that work, is you need to be able, ultimately, to demonstrate the fact that they have worked. I can bring to you, as a prospective client, my website or a resume or a list of people that we do work for. And with a little bit of luck, you might be impressed by that. That's great. That doesn't tell you alone that I can help your particular situation with your particular hotel. I talk about this in almost everything that I do. I've been fortunate enough in my work to do training classes and leadership classes literally all over the world. I've done them here in the States, I've done them in the UK, I've done them in India, I've done them in China. And I say the same thing. I say the same thing. Think like an owner, think like an entrepreneur. When we owned Cafe Norma, little old Cafe Norma, 8-seat Cafe Norma in Westchester County for 5 years. Nobody else owned it. It was our business entirely. We owned it at a point where both of us had been in the workplace, the traditional workplace, for over 20 years. So we weren't rookies in terms of, the workplace itself. So we knew that we had experience, which is one of the reasons why we thought it was appropriate, the time was right for us to step out and do this thing on our own. What we didn't anticipate, couldn't possibly anticipate, but still reap the benefit from now, I keep on saying this, when you own a business, you make decisions differently. It does not mean that the decisions that you make when you work for somebody else are bad decisions. It doesn't mean that. It means they're different. And I know this from direct personal experience. When that decision that I make to reduce the price on this item in our Cafe Norma, because it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and they're not all going to sell, and I'd rather get something for them than nothing, when that affects literally my pocket, how much money do we take out of the cash register that night, I promise you make different decisions. I mentioned that to a class that I was standing in front of recently, and somebody asked me, could you give me an example of how you did that? I said, yeah, I sure can. We would do something with Cafe Norma where, the good news was we were very well received by everybody. The place was written up in the New York Times, it was very good. I mean, it was that good, okay? So I can tell you that the amount of negative feedback that we got from customers was few and far between. That said, it's a customer business. You get people that aren't happy with something. We had a situation where a customer came in a few days after having been in before. It was a small town. We recognized most of our customers anyway. She came in and she came up to me and she said, DC, I have to tell you, I had this item a couple days ago. And it wasn't bad, but it wasn't up to its usual, my expectation from Cafe Norma. It kind of disappointed us. And I asked her a little bit about why, how, help me to understand, listening, right, kind of thing. And she explained it to me. And I said, okay, so how can I help you with this? What would you like for me to do? And I didn't just say it like, what do you want? Think about yourself as a customer. If you maybe said to somebody, I'm unhappy, and this is, so what do you want from me? It wasn't that. I listened to her, and I had eye contact, all that stuff, and I said, how can I make this right? Because it mattered to me. Not just because it was the right thing to say, but it mattered to me as the owner of the business. And she said to me, what, there's really nothing you can do. I'm going to continue to come to you, we like you, but I'm telling you, as a loyal customer, I'm disappointed, and I just feel you would want to know that, which of course I did want to know, I needed to know. She went on, she sat down and had lunch with friends, came up to the counter about 30 minutes later, whatever, to pay for her lunch, and of course, I refused to let her pay for it. And she was like, no, I want to pay. That's not why I said this to you. I I have the ability to do that because it's important to me at this point. We could debate for forever if you agree with that strategy, disagree, could I have discounted, could I have done nothing at all because I listened to her and I apologize. I chose to say, oh no. You were good enough to help me by offering me your feedback. My obligation to you, because you matter to me, is this is the way I want to make sure you come back. And even if you don't come back, I want to know that you say to somebody else, today, tomorrow, next week, next month, you know, in a bad situation, they handled it the best way possible. That's like the minimum that I want. So when you're thinking about it, when you own your own business, you sort of think that way. Not because you wouldn't do it if you worked for somebody else, but because that's directly related to your pocket. And how do I feel when I go home that night, when I did that and I treated a customer that way? Selfishly, I felt pretty good about that. I don't have to justify it to anybody. I wasn't the Norma on Cafe Norma, but I was on all the paperwork behind it, so I can do that.
So it's just you and your wife at the moment,
Yes.
and you say it's an entrepreneur perspective. Do you have any succession planning to when you're gonna like maybe expand it or move on to the next phase?
Wow, that's a really good question too. We have a vision.
Right.
The planning part is harder. And here's what I mean by that. This is clearly be careful what you wish for kind of thing. We wish to grow. We want to grow. We need to grow. We didn't step out into Titan a couple of years ago to be what we are today. I will tell you that our growth has been great, and I'm more than happy with where we are. But we're entrepreneurs. I mean, you know, we want as much as we can get. Our succession planning is we're prepared for the fact that we might need ultimately to hire help. But there's a lot of detail that goes along with that. Revenue, income obviously is important. Then there's nitty-gritty stuff. We are an LLC, right? A limited liability company in New York State. We can't have employees. Okay? So one of the things, if we're going to go to the point of having an employee, we need to think about is do we need to become a C Corp? What do we do with our structure? All of which can be done. These are not insurmountable things, but it starts to get a little more complicated. So we're stretched, we're busy. Trust me, we're busy, and it's a good thing. And we plan to grow, and we know that we will need to add if we do grow, but we're not there yet. So while we are conscious of it, and we know that it probably requires more of a plan, we're not quite there yet. That's an honest answer. Okay? Right. Think like an owner. Just don't ever lose that, please. Not to say you don't already, but you'd be amazed how it changes your perspective. Think like you own this thing. Okay, true or false? Hotel owners are often extremely knowledgeable about the hotel industry. Are they?
No.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds so much easier when you say it, so I don't have to say it. It's, you know, sometimes, first of all, they're all really smart people. Think about who hotel owners are. Sometimes they are major financial institutions, right? Think about the Blackstones of the world, right? They didn't get there by accident. Sometimes they're independent entrepreneurs, okay? They didn't get there by accident. Maybe they got there with a little bit of help from mommy and daddy, but it doesn't change the fact that these are very intelligent people. Intelligent doesn't mean you know everything you need to know about the business. The best advice I can give to my ownership clients, and sometimes to our own detriment or certainly to our own risk, I do give this advice, is you, Mr. Owner, Ms. Owner, my client, need to understand where your role stops and mine starts. Because if you insist, because you can, I will fight to the death to support your right to say whatever you want to say, whatever you want to say, you're the owner. But if you get in my way, you're not going to get what you need out of me. That's a huge part of our relationship. I don't necessarily say it quite in those words. But the point is, have to have that conversation, or there needs to be that understanding. You hired me for a purpose. Let me do my thing, okay? I will report back to you. I want your feedback. I want your ideas too. Remember, I can listen. I told you that before. They like how I listen. I can do that. But we need to have a very clear line between what you do and what I do. Because otherwise, even though you don't mean it, Mr. Ms. Owner, you might be slowing me down. So it's an important part of the program. What is the business opportunity for a consultant in our industry? The opportunity is huge. I can say to you today that Titan, because of what hopefully I've reasonably effectively described in the last hour or so, because we do what we do the way that we do it, we don't have a lot of direct competitors. There's a lot of hotel consultants out there. And yes, we have to fall into that bucket. We're a hotel consulting company. But with that said, the way we go about our business is different than most. We don't do it that way to be different. We do it that way because that's the way that we do it. The good news for us is along the way, it does make us different. And the customers, the clients that know us, appreciate that. We don't have short-term clients. I mean, for a company that's been in existence this time around, really for only a couple of years, we don't have people that leave us. We don't. I'm very proud of that fact. It's not because we're necessarily showing them all the greatest results in all the cases, but it's because we've established a relationship of trust. What is the best method for developing business as a consultant? Is it social media? Is it a website? Well, I already sort of tipped this one off. Trade publications? It's not. It's word of mouth. It's reputation. You have a website. It's a good website. People see it. They tell me, "You see, love your website. Oh my God, it's really good." I will never ever win a client because of our website. But I'm really okay with that. I still work. We still work to make our website better and better because it's the right thing to do. It reflects upon us as a business. We want to be seen as a quality entity, but that's not where our business is coming from. I talked a few minutes ago about the sort of stereotyping and perception that in many cases consultants are seen as these sort of high-level folks who come in and look at things and say, "You need to do this and this and this and this." That's a lot of what consultants do, not just in the hotel world, in the hotel world as well. A huge opportunity and a huge part of Titan's success in the little world that we live in is the fact that we take that to a much further degree. And I'm fast-forwarding from here to here. I want to talk about what's in between. I'm very proud of the fact that our strategy with all of our clients is to work with you as the owner of the hotel, as the operator of the hotel, the management company, if you will, on what are the issues, what are the opportunities, let's develop a strategy, and then, what's missing in so many other cases, let's develop a plan to execute against that strategy. There is no shortage of good ideas in the hospitality industry. The shortage, the lack, the miss, comes in the execution against those ideas. And if you think that's sort of textbook kind of stuff, well, yeah, it probably is, but I can tell you from a lot of experience, it's absolutely so. There's so many good ideas out there that don't get executed against. And in the end, you say, "Oh, that was a lousy idea." No, it wasn't. We just didn't know how to deliver it. We focus in our little corner of the world on getting to the point of having a strategy that everybody agrees upon is the right one, and then executing against it. 1,000,000 years ago in our industry, a guy who was and still is a very, very well known and very highly respected in our industry, was my boss at the time. He said this phrase, "What gets measured gets done." And others have said it too. I don't think he really had the copyright on it. But the point is the point. It's absolutely so. What gets measured gets done. As a consultant, bring the experience, bring the trust, bring the thought process, bring the strategy. But if you can't give me a plan to execute against that strategy, what are we doing? We're wasting our time. We're talking at each other, and I'm paying you something, and what can I possibly expect as an outcome? How do I execute? Make sure that I execute. It's the most important thing for any plan whatsoever. A couple quick case studies. These are things that we have been or are working on. We as Titan. This happens to be. This is kind of a cool thing that sort of comes and goes based on the financial stability of the owner, and I'll try and explain that. This is a luxury destination resort in Southeast Asia. This is a project we're working on now. I started a few years ago, stepped off of, and back on. The assignment is to master plan an island resort to include 4 hotels, as well as a residential component and all the support facilities. The role is exactly that: advise, support, and lead the ownership group in the development of the project. The reality is, a functioning role as a member of the owner's inner circle, advising on all things project related, even outside agreed upon scope of work. So we established ourselves because of our credibility and the level of trust with this owner, who happens to be, this is a really fun project, happens to be a individual, phenomenally wealthy Russian oligarch. So the textbook thing who I was fortunate enough to meet during my time in China, who owns an island in Cambodia. Yeah. Built a bridge from the island to the mainland, Cambodia, and then we got into starting this project. Okay? The project's not out of the ground yet. He's had some financial issues, he's looking for further investors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have this relationship, we as Titan have this relationship that as the project ebbs and flows, he keeps on pulling us back into it. One of the kind of cool side pieces of it is because the project is Cambodia, and I'm in the US, and he has other consultants that are involved for other skill sets. It's sometimes awkward to, like, where do we meet when we need to meet face to face? So, because it's not always practical for me or others to say, let's go to Cambodia to meet, and there's nothing there, it's an island. So it's like, it's not necessarily, doesn't make the most sense. Typically where we've met is in Barcelona, which already is not a bad thing, because Barcelona is a pretty special place. And when we go to Barcelona and we meet our Russian oligarch friend, we usually will meet on his 200-foot yacht. So, to the point of independent consulting entrepreneur, it's a lot of hard work, but there's some pretty good perks that go along with it too. So we sit there, on his 200-foot yacht, and all the trappings and everything goes along with that. And we get down to business, and we do, and we have a good time along the way. Not every project is like that. Anybody who's making a decision to step out as an independent consultant because that guy told us about this project in Cambodia should not do it just because of that. But that said, there are sometimes you bump into these things too. This is one of the things that we're involved with. Another example, a little bit different than the one that I just mentioned. A luxury branded resort in a major U.S. destination, a more traditional asset manager's role on behalf of the owner. The role is to be involved in day-to-day operations, strategy, and the renovation plans for this particular asset. The reality is working within a framework of constantly shifting ownership priorities to impact the effect of the role. In other words, here's what happens, because this is real life. All of the stuff to here is pretty textbook. This is what a hospitality consultant person should do. We do that, but the reality is because the owners, who are very, very involved with this particular asset, their priorities shift for a lot of different reasons, some of which have nothing to do with this asset itself. As a result, our priorities shift, and our ability to execute against some of the plans gets disrupted. So one of the things we've had to learn as independent advisors, consultants, is that even with the best plan, right down to the level of execution, things happen, things get in the way. And I am the first person to say it, I said it earlier, that you as the owner, not so much because you're my client, but because you're the owner, have the right to do whatever you want. And I will stand at the front of the line and defend that right. You're the owner, what you say goes, right? And you have that right. But I will also tell you when that's getting in the way of the stuff you expect from us or from others. That's my responsibility to you. It happens, it's real life, it happens to us today. Potential acquisition, this is something that came our way, that we are frankly no longer involved with, but the example is still useful. Pardon me, the potential acquisition of a resort hotel. The assignment was to identify and solicit potential investors to acquire, rebrand, and reposition this particular asset. The role was everything that goes along with investing, owning, and operating. At the time I wrote this slide, it's a little bit out of date, I'm sorry to say. It says stay tuned. This opportunity that presented itself has gone away. Unfortunately, it did not happen for us. That's the way it goes. As what is it, the New York lottery says, right, you can't win if you don't play. We were in the game. We were well down the road, which frankly is why this was very disappointing. We thought we were there, and because owners, oh my God, love them or hate them. In this case, the owner of the hotel was not our client, who potentially we were buying from. One day, his personal wind direction changed, and everything went away. My point is this: after a lot of years in the hotel business, as we are, we didn't necessarily see ourselves as being investors in or part of an ownership group. Then this opportunity presented itself, and with a lot of work and with partners, we were able to be a bona fide investment group. The deal didn't happen, and in fact, the reality is more deals don't happen than those that do, but it's another window of opportunity that opened itself to us as independent consultants, which, even though we're really experienced and we think we know a lot of stuff, we didn't see that coming either. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen again. I am winding down the part where I talk, and happy to address any questions or feedback or anything else from you folks, but very important to me is that you please do with it what you will, but hold on to my information. John knows this a bit from our past conversations. I take this very seriously. I'd like to be a resource for you, and I hope that I've been that in the last hour and a half or so, but I'd love for that to continue. And if I'm better with email than I am by phone, because I travel a fair amount, but if I can help you with anything, if you'd like to bounce ideas, whatever it is, this is not just a token, this is my contact information. I'm serious about it. I'd love to be a resource for you, but I need you to tell me how I can be. So please, feel free to contact me if that is something you'd be interested in. Now, totally self-serving, if you go to our website, you go to the blog page, you will be able to sign up for our newsletter, which does, hopefully will do something for you. It does something for me, so I'm asking you, if you'd be interested, please do that. Questions, comments, issues, anything at all, please. Sure.
I think most of the project from the hotels is the problem. I mean, the project will be like they cannot solve that. That's why I asked you. So most of them very difficult to solve. And how do you find out the solution, or it's gonna be very stressful, you know, to solve the solution. So how do you manage
Okay,
all the stress
okay, good.
as a
That's a great question. It's, the reality is that some of the problems, the challenges, don't ever get resolved 100%, and that's okay, because hardly ever are the issues, oh, starting tomorrow, instead of doing this, you do that, all your problems will go away. It's never like that, right? Our industry, our business is far more complicated. What people don't tend to look at, and this creates an opportunity for us, and again, goes back to thinking, you know, like an owner, like I was saying earlier, what people don't tend to look at is some of the more obvious stuff. I'll give you for instance, and I've written a blog about this, that was self-serving again, but if you go there, you'll see this, but it's, I think it'll go towards your question. Today in our industry, technology is huge, technology is huge in every industry, right? It's very big in the hospitality industry. And one example of that is the fact that, you know, more and more what you're starting to see in hotels of all price points, luxury going down to economy, is, for example, the notion of a kiosk in the lobby to help you check in. Because hotel people, smart or not or whatever, one of the things they know is that the single biggest pet peeve of customers is having to wait in line. Check in, check out, whatever, nobody likes it, right? I'm sure, I suspect you don't either any more than I do. So, with technology, with automation, there are these things like a kiosk to check you in. Okay, that seems easy. The problem was lines. The solution is multiple kiosks, take away the lines, right? I challenge that, okay? And I challenge that because I am one of these, I guess, old-fashioned people, but I refuse to let go of the concept that has driven me for 35 years, which is this thing that we call hospitality. Where's the hospitality when you check me in at that kiosk? Did you get me to my room faster? Yeah, you did. Okay, fine. You get points for that. But you know what? The reason why I chose your hotel at $275 a night instead of that hotel across the street at $195 is because I kind of like that thing that I call hospitality. If I don't care about hospitality, I can stay at your hotel. That's not a slam. I'll deny it later, okay? But hopefully it serves the illustration. Give the customer what they want. The way I hope that ties to your question is giving the customer what they want and being profitable and successful for us isn't always black and white. It's a matter of degrees. And I think, frankly, because of the way my brain works, that's one of the reasons why I've been able to survive in this industry as long as I have, because it isn't about, if you do this, you will get that. It's never that clear cut. There's a way of being successful without it being that clear cut. So we manage our expectations as the advisor so that we're not trying to get to that, when you do this, all your problems will be alleviated, because it's never going to happen. We're more about take these steps in between and see how much better you get, and that's real life. So hopefully that addresses your question a little bit, is, first of all, it's having realistic goals, right? How do you measure success, right? I talk about that a lot. How do you measure success? Success isn't fix the broken thing, replace the light bulb, and move on. Yeah, we do that. In the scheme of things, that's the easy stuff. You don't need to hire me to do that. Make sure that everybody on the team, owner, management company if they're in place, and us as the vendor in this case, understand what the definition of success is. It may not be that thing that you thought it was when it starts out. Does that help? Okay,
Thank you.
okay, of course you will. Somebody else, please. Yes.
When you do a consult, for example, at a luxury hotel,
Uh-huh.
and then, well, you already have a 30 plus years experience. How you make new ideas for this new hotel that doesn't exactly
How does an old guy come up with new ideas? No, it's okay if I say it. You didn't say that. You didn't say that. I said that. You know what? That's actually a fun thing too. Because this is probably too textbook, but I swear to you it's true. The best ideas aren't always the new ideas. I mean, and I can use the technology example a moment ago. How do you fix that problem with line in the lobby? Oh, kiosks. Great, cool. Start tomorrow. Buy the kiosk. You fix this problem, you might have created that problem, like I said. So to answer your question the best way that I can, because this is customer service stuff, it is hardly ever black and white, like I've said before. There's so much gray in terms of what is an improvement, what is success versus not. That the new ideas that we're responsible for as the consultant, as the entrepreneur, you know, as I've said myself, we're entrepreneurs. The new ideas are different ways of doing what you're doing, but they may not be new at all. I don't find any resistance whatsoever sitting across the table with hotel company people who have been in this business for a respectfully long time, let's say 15 years. But in that 15 years, they're a whole lot younger than I am, okay? I'm not playing the experience card with them at all, but the point is, they don't resist the fact, somebody who's 30, 35 years old who's been doing this for a while, they don't resist the fact that there are other ways of doing things other than what is the latest and greatest thing off the shelf. Hospitality, frankly, is you're better at hospitality by being able to execute against ideas and things that have been out there for a long time. If you know or have read anything by, you know who Danny Meyer is here in New York, you know, all these restaurants and everything like that, and maybe you've studied whatever. So Danny Meyer, he made up a word, and I use this a lot too, I borrow it from him, so now I think sufficiently footnoted Danny Meyer, hospitalitarians. He talks about hiring people. He maintains that I can teach anybody how to serve from the left and clear from the right, how to pour a water glass, how to remove silverware, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can't teach you to be a hospitality person. You either are or you're not. If you're not, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just means I'm probably not going to hire you in my restaurant. That's the way he approaches things. In my mind, that relates to your question in that so much of what we do, if you think about it in the context of what does the customer expect and what can we deliver, that can be a new idea, even if the thing itself that causes that isn't new. Does that make any sense at all? We're about exceeding the customer expectation. That's hospitality, that's what it is. We're about meeting or exceeding the customer expectation. You don't have to have a new toy all the time to do that. You have to be able to execute against a plan, a strategy, better than your competitor. That's not necessarily because you have new or more bells and whistles. Does that help?
Yeah. Another question. So for example, once one your clients win this and it's one in your palace, well they're kind of in the same hotel area, like competitor.
Right.
Is there a clause in the contract that you cannot keep the same price together?
Oh, interesting. Actually, no. But that's great. There isn't. We don't put that in. I've had owners, prospective clients, ask me before we get to the point of doing business together, who else are you working for? Is there anybody I should know about? Or, basically a question like that. Because of exactly that fact. And I'll tell them, it hasn't come into play for us. As we grow, it would be a good problem to have, but it would be, really, as I see it, it would be less about a contractual issue, more about a professional issue. But it's up to me to say to you, the owner, we really can't do this for you right now because we work for your competition across the street, for example. So it's not in the contract, although it could be. An owner could insist upon that. And I would have no problem putting it in our contract because I would never work that way anyway. Okay? What else? Yes?
I have a question about a potential situation. You said that you can be a consultant to management companies, for example.
Yes.
Has it happened to you that you're, for example, the consultant of a management company and you also have an asset manager who was hired by the owner of that property? So you basically have to sit at the same table, or maybe the reverse situation.
It has not happened, so I can't tell you that I've worked with that. I'm trying to think. I suppose it could.
It could happen.
Yeah, here's why it hasn't for me. When I was hired as a consultant by a management company instead of by an owner, the example I mentioned early on, Interstate Hotels was looking at a portfolio of hotels in Egypt, and they needed somebody to do that for them. They were never the owner, but they were trying to decide whether or not to even bid on this management agreement. So my role was a little bit different. It was more of a research, due diligence kind of a thing. So there was no owner's rep involved because it wasn't about the performance of these hotels. It was more of a research thing. So I'm trying to think of a case where I don't know that it would happen because the management company.
Like, wouldn't either party kind of have to let the other party know, like, hey, listen, we're going to add to our budget TC Becker.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that's really interesting because we also want to add them to, like, wouldn't they let
I'm
each
not
other
saying
know?
that
No, you're saying somebody else.
Oh.
Two different people,
Two
right?
different
I understand that. Here's why never say never, but here's why I think it would be unusual. Because if I am the consultant hired by the management company, and I am the owner of that hotel, which is ultimately what we're talking about, the asset, right? I'm going to say, I hired you as a management company. Sorry for pointing. I hired you as the management company because of the skill and the resources that you bring to manage my hotel. Why do you need to hire an outside consultant? You see what I'm saying? I've had those conversations. So it's not crazy. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but An astute owner, in a case like that, would shut it down right away because I'm paying you, the management company, a fee for your management services, which include people. In fact, are mostly people. If you need to go to the outside to hire, why do I need you? See what I'm saying? So it could happen, and that's another, frankly, another fun thing about our business is anything can happen at any time. You know, a lot of the owners of hotels are also entrepreneurs, so they come up with some crazy stuff. So anything's possible. Okay. One or two more? Yes, ma'am.
You just really curious about how where do you get your information? I mean, I guess you get information from your clients, but do you do some research or buy some database from outside?
Kind of all of the above. We do get information directly from our clients. I'll give you a really good example. When we work, for example, I'll use Ritz-Carlton again, because they're very, very good at what they do. We disagree on a ton of stuff, and I am often like the sharpest stick in their eye, but it's a mutual respect thing. I mean, it is, but they do a really good job. In working with the hotels of theirs that I do, we share information they get as a brand, not only because they're Ritz-Carlton, but as I'm sure you know, as a part of the Marriott family, they have access to a tremendous amount of data and information that little old Norman and DC at Titan could never touch, or at least would never have the budget for. They share that with me as it relates to their hotels that we cover because it's in their interest, because we have that relationship. And they'd love to have another set of eyes that they trust, in this case me, to look at that data. So that's one way that we get data. Another way is there are other things available through consulting firms specific to our business. You know, Horwath, for example, PKF, and so on and so forth. And we, in certain cases, buy information from them, you know, data on markets, whatever the case may be. Smith Travel Research, STAR, right, STR, is a huge part of what we do. We get a lot of that information from the hotels that we cover, but in certain cases we buy information from them too, because it makes us better at what we do. So experience, availability of data, partners, clients, sort of all of the above. Okay? One more or not? Yes, please.
Are you having any plan with opening a hotel or resort on your own now that you're a consultant and working as a manager? I think owners must be seeing you as a competitor as well, like a threat maybe because you're like an expert in the field already. So I think you must be having such plans, right, of venturing out.
Thank you. I will put it this way. We see a tremendous amount of opportunity out there. I mean, we really do. And the example, one of the case studies that I mentioned, you know, where we ended up forming this group to bid on buying the hotel, but unfortunately, ultimately didn't happen. Until that happened, we hadn't anticipated even being in that space. By the time we were done with that exercise, which probably ran for 4 or 5 months from start to finish, we were so convinced that there was a way we could be really successful there. And the way that one was going to work, just really fast, was there was going to be a management company. Titan is not a management company. You know, we're not trying to be. That's not in our business model. We don't want to be that. In our model for this hotel that we ultimately did not succeed with, the plan was bring in a professional management company. There was a financial arrangement where we were part of the ownership team and so on and so forth. But I think what we learned is what an incredible opportunity there could be for just exactly that, to be a part of, in the right places, right investment opportunity, to be a part of the ownership group, to bring in a professional management company that you trust and know can do the job, and to work as like an owner's rep with them, but yet being part of the ownership group. That formula, that package, we thought then, and I think now, in the right circumstance, could be hugely successful. So, you know, and outright, you know, do Norman DC want to own their own hotel? No. If I wasn't clear, no. But under the right circumstance, with the right structure, we think it could be really, really effective for us, really, really successful for us. And I reserve the right to come back in front of you in 6 months and say, we now own 6 hotels. It'll never happen. No, it changes all the time, but we've learned. We've learned of ways of doing that we would not have anticipated. So it comes back to the independence and sort of the entrepreneurial piece, hopefully without overextending ourselves. So we'll keep all that stuff on the table. Okay?
DC, thank you very much. Excellent work.